Hi there. My name is Christy Daniels, and I'm a personal power coach at Empower Studio. I am here to walk you through a presentation called Dancing with the Moon 101. It's all about creating a personal practice that can enrich your life. And so you might be asking yourself the question, what's the big deal about the moon? Why would I bother? Well, the lunar cycles and the moon itself has an effect and an influence on us, whether or not we are tuned into it or completely oblivious. So it's based in science, and the moon has a gravitational pull on bodies of water that are in and cover and exist around the earth. We've experienced them daily in high tides and in low tides, and it changes in relation to where the moon is in its orbit around the earth, and where the earth is in its orbit around the sun. And so the tides that we experience every day, large masses of water bulging due to the gravitational pull of the moon. Imagine what it can do to us. We are 55 to 60% water. And so we are being affected by the moon, whether or not we're tuned in and aware of it or not. To share additional ways that it shows up, if you're in emergency professions or in helping professions such as the fire department, the paramedics, nursing, or physicians, we know that the fire department, the EMTs, the folks at the hospital arrange their staffing around the full moon. And we had a woman who has a nursing background, about 40 years in nursing, share in one of our last workshops that her experience has been that during the full moon, there are more births, more women coming in to deliver. And so there is an influence on us. And just as you might want to check the weather to see if it's cloudy, if it's going to be sunny, is it going to be hot, is it going to be cold, or somewhere in between, is it going to rain, do you need to consider snow, what's the weather like? You tune in so that you can choose your clothing and what you take with you as you go out into your day. Maybe what you choose to do with your planning. Maybe if it's forecasted to snow and sleet, you may not be traveling very far from your house. And so just as we would do that with weather, tuning into the cosmic weather, tuning into what's happening with the moon, what's happening with this astrologically, is a way of understanding something that's really hard to put your fingers on. It's very intangible, but that we can feel. We can feel its effects. And it's especially satisfying when you tune into the lunar cycles and you then understand your connection. The things you're experiencing are kind of explained with where the moon is and how we're perceiving it from Earth. And being able to pull this together in a personal practice is very gratifying. It offers a container of support for you as you increase your connection with nature, the moon being part of nature, and also as you increase your connection with yourself. It's a way to use it as a lens to further do self-discovery and to understand more about who you are, what's unique about you, your experience, and really ground you in that. So I'm going to share my screen so I can take you through the presentation here that I've got for you. And it all really starts with this wisdom of connection. This is a principle of the wisdom of connection. I read it in the book, The Reconnection by Dr. Eric Pearl. And it was in the foreword that Dr. Gary E. Schwartz wrote. He is a professor of psychology and medicine, neurology, psychiatry, and surgery at the University of Arizona. And he's a director of the Laboratory for Advances in Consciousness and in Health. And when I saw this mentioned in the book, it rang so many bells for me. It was something that had happened organically for me, and it was a principle I didn't know I was using, and it applied to so many different places in my life. It was the principle that I used as a program manager, a project manager, a national implementation manager, even as a ops manager for a help desk in the corporate world. So as I would go in to fix troubled projects, this was the process that just was used. And when I started looking at it, it's actually the process that and the principle behind what I use with my clients today as a coach. And so I share it with you as the basis for so many things. So if you look at the bottom row first, down here, think of this as lack of connection. So if you have a lack of connection to your body, then you are in a state of disconnection. I'm sorry, lack of attention to your body, a state of disconnection. And then that state of disconnection leads to a state of dysregulation, not being in tune with your body's signals for thirst, for rest, for food, for all the things that you need, for stimulation. It can be anything. And so from that state of dysregulation, things become disordered. You're experiencing disorder. And then that state of disorder leads to dis-ease. And that can be lack of ease in your life. It also can be dis-ease. It can be show up as illness in your body. And so I think we'd all agree that we wouldn't want to be down here. But so many things in our life really draw our attention away from our body, away from our personal experience, and out into the other world. You know, we're such a connected society. Our attention is really pulled to other people, to other experiences, to work, to the priorities that others have in the world, and away from our own attentiveness to ourselves. And so this top row is really where I would like you to be. And as a coach, this is where I lead people, guiding you through the process and offering you experiences, tools, reflections, challenges, experiments that help you really get this habit of attending to yourself in your bones. And so the wisdom of connection here is attention. So bringing attention back to your body results in a state of connection with your body. That state of connection leads to a state of self-regulation. You're listening to your body's needs for water, for play, for creativity, for rest, for connection with other human beings, for connection with nature, so on and so forth. And that state of self-regulation leads to a state of order in your life. Things become less chaotic. They become more ordered. And then from that state of order, it ends up being an experience of ease. Your experience of life is filled with more ease. Not to say that there aren't challenges. It's that the types of challenges are there to hone you and to grow you, and then your ability to face those challenges with tools, with habits, with prioritization, with connection, increase your state of ease. And so this wisdom of connection is just vital. I try to share it with everybody as often as I can. One thing I'm going to share with you is if you're bringing your attention, if you start here with attention, then these other states will naturally show up in your life to varying degrees. And so this applies with nature as well. And so as a society, we are so disconnected from nature. I'm I'm sure there are exceptions, but by and large, so many of us are connected to the internet. Our jobs, our livelihoods, our professions, our businesses are so connected this way that it really is challenging. We have lights that we can turn on. We can have lights 24 hours a day. We no longer need to go to sleep when the sun goes down, wake up when the sun comes up. Our connection with nature through technology is disrupted. And so that can lead to some serious situations. Richard Louv writes that about nature deficit disorder. So his book was Last Child in the Woods. And he says nature deficit disorder describes the human costs of alienating ourselves from nature, among them diminished use of senses, attention difficulties. We all have heard so many people who have challenges with that. Higher rates of physical and emotional illnesses. And without that connection to nature, people lose interest in protecting it. And so as I'm recording this today, we've had bulldozers who have come in the last few weeks. Actually, it's been going on off and on for the last 6 months where I'm recording this. And it's been devastating for the people here to have so much of the nature removed in response to the desire to develop and to create homes. It's a challenge, and I think it's something that we've got to start paying attention to, but not many people are standing up for this because we're disconnected. We don't have that reverence and appreciation for what nature gives. Without nature, we wouldn't exist. So being disconnected brings challenges, not only with connection to ourself, disconnected from ourselves, our body, our spirit, our being, disconnected from nature, disconnected from the relationships and the people that we care about most, our clients, connection with others broader in our local community, in the wider world. So being able to focus on attention with that wisdom of connection helps us bring more order and more connection in these different areas. And so that starts with slowing down. Slowing down, jumping off the hamster wheel, slowing down your breathing, slowing down your pace helps us really become present. And present is really where that quality of attention increases. And so being able to reconnect with the rhythm and cycles of nature is one way to start flexing and getting muscle memory for bringing our attention back and really living in that state of connection. So the seasonal cycles, this is leading a little bit into lunar cycles. I'll start with seasonal cycles. It's very familiar. Most places in the world have these seasonal changes to one degree or another. Around the equator, that's not really the case, but most of us have experienced or understand seasonal cycles, and those start with winter. We have winter, everybody knows about that. That's more of a calming down, a closing, kind of a hibernating, going within season where we're appreciating and really reflecting a lot, conserving our resources, conserving our energy, reflecting and just being in a more restful, dormant state. And then springtime comes. We've got more. There's an excitement in the air around spring. New blooms are showing up. Life is returning. It's beautiful to witness, and so there's a freshness that comes with the cycle of spring. More quickening of activity. A hope, a new hope for something new and different. And then summer, of course, summer is like full illumination of the sun. We experience blooming of gardens, blooming of trees, of plant life, flourishing of gardens, flourishing of activity, being able to be outside. connecting. We have farmers markets. We have festivals, outdoor festivals. We have outdoor concerts. We have lots of opportunities and events that happen during that season of the year. And then fall. Fall is that beginning to reap harvest from everything that happened, beginning to preserve, to save, to distribute the blessings that we harvested during the summer months, and then preparing to close down in preparation for winter. Being able to be a little more reflective. What is it we need to choose to keep? What is it we need to give? What is it we need to preserve? What is it we need to do to prepare ourselves for the winter to come? And so these cycles are repeated again in terms of the lunar cycles. So we have the new moon, which is when the moon and the sun are so close together, the closest together that there's no illumination that we experience when we look out at the moon in the sky at night. And that mimics for us the season of winter, going within, being reflective, listening a lot. And the waxing phase for the moon would be springtime. It would be when there's a quickening of activity, that potential is growing for us. Full moon would be when the moon is the furthest away from the sun. And so as a result, it's reflecting the full reflection of the sun, full illumination. So that mimics the fullness of summer, the fullness of blooming, things being revealed to us that we might not have been able to see in the winter or the springtime. And then the waning phase would be fall, would be comparable to fall, where you're reflecting, you're closing things down, you're stowing away the gifts and the blessings, you're distributing the gifts and the blessings, you're getting ordered so that you can do a little bit of contemplation when it comes to winter again. And for the lunar cycles, these happen approximately 13 times a year. So rather than doing just one season where you would set a New Year's resolution at the beginning of the year and use the whole year to nurture and tend to that New Year's resolution, by working with lunar phases, you're doing that 13 times a year. You're setting intentions at the new moon. You're nurturing them through the waxing phase. At full moon, we're seeing that intention come to fruition, or we're seeing that the structure wasn't there to support it at that time, and we're deciding what it is we need to let go of to make more room for more of the blossoming, for more of it to be in our life. And then for fall, we're distributing the blessings of that. We're receiving the gifts of that intention. We are sharing the bounty with others in ways that are unique to us. And we are preparing and reflecting on this last cycle in preparation for listening again to see what that next new intention is during the new moon and in the winter time. Menstrual cycles also mimic these seasons. So, we've got the menstrual period when you're actually bleeding. That's the time that's comparable to winter. Listening, your psychic senses are heightened during this time. Your ability to sense and see clearly is enhanced and finely tuned. And so it's a perfect time to really let go and shed of things that no longer serve, and also tune in for that intention to be set. For a menstrual cycle, that's comparable to the waxing in the spring phase. That's the follicular phase, where we've got the uterine lining being built. Everything inside is being built in preparation and eager anticipation for the possibility of new life. And then the full moon is representative of the ovulation phase, where the egg is released. For a woman who's menstruating, that's when you're powers of persuasion, the great time to record videos, to meet in person, to do negotiations, to be seen, because you're received in a powerful way during that time. And then for menstrual cycles, for the luteal phase, which is there's no there is no new life growing. We're closing down, we're cleaning the body out, we're preparing to close down and let go of everything that we don't need so that we can go back into this bleeding cycle with releasing and then prepare for the possibility again of new birth. And so that's how these cycles kind of play out. Now, you may or may not be in your menstrual time, and you don't have to be in that time to tune into these cycles. Being able to tune into the moon can help you get into a rhythm again that is ancient for women. So as far as dancing with the moon, what we're talking about here is having the moon, which I refer to as grandmother moon, be a rhythm, setting rhythm and pace for balancing our lives. So rather than just 4 of the phases, as we look at the moon, we actually have 8 phases, and the moon goes in and out of these phases. And so I'm going to move my picture here so you can see this yin and yang symbol. And so grandmother moon is our timekeeper, and she sets the pace, reminds us to shift back and forth so that we have a balance of exertion and doing and a focus on all of that, as well as a focus and a reminder to just simply be. Because it's important for us to be able to rest and restore. During the rest and restore times, that what we call the yin phase, those are times, and the yin's represented by the darkness here, and also this dark dot. The yin phases are more phases where you can go within and reflect, rest, recharge, do something that really just feeds your soul and honors your state of being. And those you can think of as times where if the arrow was your intention, you would be drawing back your bow during a yin phase. And during the yin phase, you would be honing your aim for when that arrow of action and activity is let go. You're more precisely focusing where it is you're wanting to put your focus and attention, your precious energy. And during the yang phases, that's when there's an enhancement of activity. And up here you can see that there's, even in the yang, in the white phase, there's a little bit of yin. And even in the yin phase of rest and being, there's a little bit of yang. And so tracking with the cycles helps remind us. So we don't have to make that decision. We just look up at grandmother moon and our perception of her progress around the sky, and we're reminded, oh, it's a yin phase. When given the choice, I'm going to prioritize rest and being over doing, so that whenever it comes back to a doing phase, I'm able and I have the energy. It could be considered, a friend of mine calls it pre-charging, and it can also be recharging. And so this ability to dance back and forth, to be able to be more in an action phase and more in a being phase. Some would say more in a masculine state and more in a feminine state. We're able to really learn how to dance and how to have be both receptive when life calls us to be receptive, and masculine and active when life calls us to be active. And therefore we have muscle memory to be able to switch more fluidly, to be more skilled and adept at being able to answer life with what it's calling for. And so as a result, we have a more sane balance of giving and receiving. We're able to be more fluid in life, and that lends itself to a greater experience for us. So the yang and the yin steps. Yang reminds us that, to get motivated, to initiate action, to create action and structures that will allow the yin focus to flow fluidly, more easily. Initiating, doing, speaking, giving, those are yang kinds of activities. And then yin phase reminds us to tune into ourselves and slow down. What are you feeling? Do you need to restore balance? Checking in with yourself in a state of being. What is it that I need to really restore myself? And so it's you would think of restoring, of being, of listening, of receiving during yin phases. So to go through the 8 phases, phase 1 is new moon, it's yang, and so the dark is dawning. So this is a yang phase because we're setting an intention, and it's comparable to winter. It's represented by the absence of light. There is no light being reflected off the moon at this time. Grandma the moon is closest to grandfather sun, and there is no illumination that we're able to perceive from our vantage point. And so with that darkness, we have to learn to see in the dark. Without being able to use our eyes, we tune into our senses. So we're able to tune more into our feeling state, listening state. And so with the absence of light, we feel the intention in our bodies. And the symbolic seed germinates underground. So if we're using a metaphor of growing in plants, we've got this seed that's germinating and needs that darkness to germinate underground for it to be able to actually have the potential for life to grow into something. And so at this phase, the moon rises at dawn, it sets at sunset, and it's up to 3 to 5 days after the new moon. You can kind of like experience its effects within that 3-day period. Now, phase 2, we move into a yin phase. So we're dancing into yin. So we've gone from activity of setting an intention with a little bit of yin in there for that listening and tuning in, the action of intention setting. We move into yin phase. And so yin phase is the crescent phase, phase 2. And it's like that quickening phase. It's kind of like the beginning of spring, but not even being able to see the beginning of spring. It's that time where light is stirring. There's some life that's stirring inside. And you get first glimpses of what might be growing. And so in terms of seeds, it's like maybe little sprouts are showing up. This is a time when the symbolic seed breaks out of its seed casing and it pushes up through the soil, just the first starts above ground. So in this phase, it's important to trust that there are forces at work and at play here that are conspiring to assist the intention that you set at the new moon. You may not understand the soil it's planted in. You may not understand how frequently it's being watered, or you might be watering it. You might not understand all the complexities of what this intention needs for nourishment, but you're tuning in and you're trusting that it's not just you, that it's your attention will help you connect with what is yours to do, and there's other unseen forces conspiring to help you. At this phase, the moon is reflecting some of the sun, and it's rising in mid-morning, setting after sunset in the western sky. The third phase is the first quarter, and so this is a yang phase. Let me move this down. This is a yang phase, and so we're dancing again back into activity, and you can tell because it's a very masculine kind of division here. We're seeing almost in the exact middle, half light, half dark, half light and half dark, and so this can be a time of tension. With those polarities, the lightness and the darkness. So the light and dark is in balance. With the light gaining, the structure and the outline of what to be kind of comes into form. And so that's when we're going to get to see, does it have a strong root structure? Does it have a strong stem structure? Does it have a good chance at life for our intention, as well as this plant that we're talking about? And so the symbolic seed establishes its root and stem structure. And we ask ourselves questions like, what is it that we can do to create structure and support for this intention to come into being? What action can we take to support it? And the moon rises at noon, it sets at midnight during this phase. Let's see. There we go. Now we're going over to phase 4. This is gibbous phase, and this is the yin phase. And with the yin phase, I look at them as, they're more fluid when you're looking at it. This phase is all about being receptive. Again, the light becomes more dominant. It's not completely eliminated, but there's a quest for revelation. So you're seeing like the seeds, the buds, the new life that is coming up out of the surface and on its way to blooming. And so the symbolic seed in this point buds. And so this phase, for our intention, it's looking at what can we do to nurture and nourish that intention. What is it that we can do to be more present and more attentive to the intention, and what does it need right now? What does our body need right now to keep going in a balanced state? What does that intention need right now from us? So then we dance back into the yang phase, so the full moon phase. This is full illumination. So this is where the moon is directly and at its furthest point away from the sun. So it's fully reflecting all of the sunlight off of its surface, or at least that's our perception of it here, looking at Big Grandmother Moon from the Earth. So full moons, it represent, in terms of plants, blooming and blossoming. In terms of our intention, illumination. We're finally seeing that intention, and what might be the blooming of that intention for this particular cycle. It's also this phase where it's like, once we're seeing that, what is it that's ours to let go of, to make more room? What do we need to weed out of ourselves, state of being, habits, beliefs, that we can make room for this new intention to have more room to live and thrive in our life and bloom even more. So for the flowering it must be infused with the structure that we built during this whole waxing phase, the waxing portion. And so if the form is inadequate, if the structure is not there to support the growth, then the life impulse starts to decline. And so we know at this stage if that intention really is going to come to fruition, or if maybe the timing wasn't right, maybe the structure wasn't right, maybe we honor that and go back to the drawing board and do more reflection this phase, and return again next time during the next new moon for a different intention, maybe a repeat or a refinement of this intention. And so in this case, the symbolic seed flowers, or it breaks down. And the moon rises at sunset, and it's setting at dawn. So phase 6 is disseminating. So again, we're dancing back into a yin phase. Let me just go back here. So the full moon, the action is about releasing. That action is about releasing and making those choices. What is it that I want to weed and let go of? And then the phase 6 is disseminating, and it's yin. And again, it's got that feminine curve to it. And it's the first stirring of the dark. So we're starting, we had full illumination. Now we're having illumination, but it's diminishing, and the darkness is starting to return as we see it in the sky. And so the life impulse has this impulse to disseminate. It has this impulse to distribute the energy, the meaning, the understanding of the fruits of the labor. And there's an urgency to distribute and to give out, to share the value that was received during this full moon. So in terms of plants, it's having fruit to share, vegetables to share, things to actually give out and share. And that urgency to harvest and to give and spread out the bounty and the blessings. At this phase, the moon rises during mid-evening and it's setting mid-morning. And let me just mention to you here, so one of the journal prompts that I have in this book that I created, this little Dancing with the Moon book, we use it in our lunar lab too, is what's coming into your life right now that you're willing to receive? What are you willing to receive and receive in advance? So in this phase, it's talking about wise receiving, receiving the things that you can definitely use, but then also allowing it to pass on to someone else if it's not something that's in your highest and best to receive at that time. This is also a time to work on being able to receive those fruits, being able to receive the fruits of your labor, focusing on your inner worthiness and deserving set point, and being able to grow that, being able to soften that up and allow more space and freedom for you to welcome more into your life. So phase 7, third quarter, yang, again, you'll notice it's got that distinct balance of light and dark. Again, it can be a challenging time emotionally, kind of being pulled in both directions. So this life impulse completed its mission. It's now time to reorient and really anticipate the future. So it's a time to break down the old, useless forms of things and an inner revolt, crisis of consciousness. Basically, the planet realizes it's time to start breaking down. And so it wants to give in the way that it can give, because this impending death part of the cycle is coming. And so it's about giving from your intention. What is it that you can give that is unique to you, giving in your own way? And I'll give you the journal prompt for this. What's life calling me to give back now that I've received this intention or the information from the intention? What is it that's mine to give? And if you have a full cup, that's when you give to others. When you have less than a full cup, that's when you're actually giving to yourself. And so the moon rises at midnight and it sets at noon. The last phase is the balsamic phase. And this again is coming back to yin. It's got that graceful little crescent on the other side, backwards crescent. We call it balsamic. And it's the life impulse distilling and concentrating the wisdom for the whole cycle, encapsulating it into a seed for future visions. So the symbolic seed turns itself back to seed, so that what it's learned and its gifts can be concentrated and used again in the future. And that's what we're doing during this time with our intention. It's more of a restful, reflective phase. And where have I been? Where am I going? That's the question to ask, kind of look back over the last cycle. Where have you been over this last cycle? And where is it that you sense that you're going, that desire to move into a new intention and a new cycle? At this point, the moon rises at 3 a.m., give or take, and it sets mid-afternoon. And I should share also that the Mysteries of the Dark Moon by Demetra George is an amazing book, and I was able to pull and share a lot of this information in these slides about the specific phases from her book. And so I want to make sure I give credit and recommend that book highly. And so how do you turn all of this into a personal practice? So you use the theme to guide your reflections, for listening and setting your intentions. So the new moon in Scorpio, that's what we're in as of this recording. And this is a work of art. This is watercolor and pen and ink by one of our local artists, Justin Williams. He's in Northwest Arkansas. He does magnificent. He has a magnificent series on astrological signs, and I highly recommend them. You can have little postcards up to paintings or actual pieces of art or prints. And so I encourage you to look him up at Justin Williams on Facebook to see, check out the rest of the signs. So that's he provided this artwork. Let me back up. And so one of my favorite feminist astrologers is Chani Nicholas. And in fact, she was the sponsor last year for our meetup group. And I want to just share a quote with you that she shared as of this recording. So if you're not in New Moon in Scorpio, which was back in November 7th of 2018 of this recording, you can look at Chani Nicholas for whatever cycle you're in. And I'll show you how to do that a little bit more, but let me go through this so you'll have an example of how to use it and how to do a little bit of tuning in for yourself to hone where you're going to aim. So one of the things that she shares in her blog relating to this new moon in Scorpio is that Jupiter is coming back into a different sign. So Jupiter in Scorpio obliged. And so it says the civil rights activist and founder of the Me Too movement, Tarana Burke, has since become one of the most important figureheads of the long-standing multi-generational movement to understand and address the impact of sexual violence for those who have survived it. And Jupiter spends approximately 1 year in each sign, so it takes about 12 years to return back to its sign. Tarana Burke founded Me Too in the Me Too movement in 2006, 12 years ago. So we're returning to that. This has been an amazing year in terms of Me Too, just the return of this focus, the return of justice relating to the impact of sexual violence and women speaking up, men speaking up, people being no longer hidden about this topic, but forcing it out into a public discussion and dialogue, as we've been seeing it play out. And so it says our movements have a movement and a timing all their own. And so that's a little glimpse in terms of what is returning. So you can look back 12 years to see what was going on with you in 2006, see what was prominent for you, and especially justice. Justice was one of those themes that I remember her writing about. In addition to that, the Global Sisterhood offers a theme for us every lunar cycle. Scorpio is a water sign, and water is representative and symbolic of the emotions. And so for this particular phase in the astrology, let me say Scorpio, it's about depth, it's about intuition, it's about passion, it's about sexuality, sensuality, death, rebirth, transformation. And so given the astrology, they chose to use the theme sacred sexuality and unlocking the power of your creative life force. So that would be the theme that would guide us if I was doing this presentation on the Lunar Lab. We take that theme, whatever the Global Sisterhood theme is, and we actually integrate that theme and explore it throughout the lunar cycle, in and out of these different phases, which is a very powerful experience. So journal questions for you in this new moon in Scorpio would be, and you can do that now still. If you're watching this later, you can still go back. It's not too late. It will give you kind of an aim. Ask yourself, do you have unspoken boundaries or requests in the area of sexuality? Just grab your journal. You can pause this and go answer these questions. What does sacred sexuality mean to you? And what's one thing that you can do to bring more of it into your life? How much pleasure do you allow into your life? And would you be willing to experiment with more? So these questions come from the Global Sisterhood, or at least are inspired. I might have modified and tweaked those. I usually do that in my own way. New moons are all about feeling and sensing. So again, remember, we're talking about not being able to see the illumination, so we can't really use our eyes as much. We're feeling, we're sensing, we're tuning into our body. And with we're looking for direction. We're looking for what's going to direct us forward in terms of an intention. So you immerse yourself in the senses. It helps you tune into that feeling state and tune into that something new that's wanting to be, that craving, that inner desire that's wanting to rise up and be set and recognized and attended to as an intention for your next lunar cycle. So creating a personal practice around this includes marking your dates on the calendar. If you have this download, this particular download, then on this page you've got the dates for each phase, for the waxing and the waning phases. And then being able to set aside a regular date and time for yourself every new moon so that you have the time set aside. Better yet, gather with a new moon gathering, a group of women who are gathering to do this collectively. There's definitely power in numbers and in sharing your intention with other women. There's power in naming and claiming it. And so leading up to the new moon, you can gather notes about what's coming up to leave, what you're tuning into in your body, what you're sensing is rising up as a desire in you. You can check out different, I've got resources at the end of this, check out different astrologers. Mystic Mama compiles a number of different astrologers. I also love her viewpoints, and she has amazing collages. Channing Nicholas, and a feminist astrologer who has kind of a poetic way, and she is prolific. She produces new moon astrology readings every month for your particular rising sign, and I would highly recommend checking one of those out. They're very detailed, very in-depth, and well worth what she offers them for in terms of insights to really kind of guide your planning for the rest of the lunar cycle. And or Jennifer Rasiopi. And so Jennifer has this interesting, I love her because of her interesting balance of logic and soul, and I really appreciate the way she explains things. And right now, during this recording, she has a moon school that's free. And so I'll see if I can put the link in down there. My understanding is she does this once a year. No guarantee that it'll happen again. But if that's something that you're curious about, I'll include a link below so that you can check that out. And then any other cosmic weather influences, astrological things. The Power Path has really great information that I appreciate as well. Gather all of your do a little research, read, highlight, or make notes about what really resonates and speaks for you. And then gather items that symbolize what it is, this desire that's growing in you, and also honors the cosmic weather, honors the where we are with Scorpio and the new moon and the passion, the sexuality, the sensuality, the honoring the water and the element of water. Just gather some items and create just a small little altar for yourself. And then synchronizing this into a personal practice. Oops. Oh my goodness. Oh no. Now I don't know how to get back. Let's see, how do I get back? Sorry, guys and gals. All right, now what I was trying to do is move my picture here. So synchronizing with the personal practice. So on the new moon, you're connecting with your body for that intention. Just pull out your journal and just write. Tune in. If you've done work with me, tune into your hara and that warm globe of light, and just really listen from a deep, deep space within you. See what you have that's rising up. Journal about it. if the shortcut for you would be to connect with Global Sisterhood and find a new moon circle near you in your area. If you're in Northwest Arkansas, there are a number of different new moon circles. The one that I founded and that I kind of foster and tend to is under the umbrella of Empower Studio. Empower Studio is my business, and so we just kind of like sponsor, and we sponsor the meetup and the tending to all of that. And so if you find a local Global Sister Circle in your area, like ours, what you can do is they'll kind of do a lot of that for you. The person who is leading will, you'll get to connect in through a guided heart meditation that everybody in the Global Sisterhood, all sister circles in over 80 different countries, tune into on that new moon and tune into the theme. And so collectively, there's this resonance that we're creating around the world, focusing our attention on this particular theme, and then all setting our own intentions. And so that's a really great way to be able to start this as a personal practice, is to combine it in community with other women. So synchronizing it into a personal practice, this is kind of decoding it for you. So during the lunar cycle, you would be, these are recommendations of things you can do to kind of integrate it. So for me, I have, I'm doing, lunar cycles. If you can look over here, I draw the picture of the moon as I see it in the sky. I look for the moon every day and just do some moon gazing. I tune in during each of the phases to ask myself those journal questions and really reflect and honor if I'm in a yang or a yin phase and that activity that's inspiring, and dancing with it. And then checking to see where the lunar cycle is about your intention. How is that going? What is it? What attention does your intention need from you? And then at the end, just repeat the process. So to kind of wrap up, I am all about tapping into women's mysteries. I am fascinated by it. So I have, it was I didn't get welcomed into my bleed. My bleed was when I was 11, and it was pretty traumatic for me. I didn't really understand what was happening. I was envying guys because, the men around me were all going out and making things happen, and the women really didn't seem to have a lot of power and influence or choice. And so I rejected and resented, and that started kind of a lifelong experience of me being disconnected with my femininity, disconnected from the divine feminine. And it took me to my 40s, mid 40s. I would say mid 40s, before and early 40s, before I really started appreciating and seeing the gifts of that I had no awareness of. And so I'm passionate about bringing women back in touch with their feminine power that resides in us all along. We just sometimes are unaware, uninformed, that we actually have these really cool superpowers. And so I'm all about that. And then all about equipping women with tools to be able to come back in and own their power and be able to actually go out into the world in a way that is unique, in their own unique brilliance, standing in their own unique truth, to create a world that is more compassionate and more loving, and more humane for all of us. And so we have, there's a tradition, there's actually a Jewish tradition of women gathering during their moon time. And one of my colleagues that was at one of our recent workshops gatherings on this topic shared with me that it's called Rosh Hodesh. I have yet to look into that, but I do remember reading The Red Tent. I'll also put that in the link down below. And I just was fascinated by the fact that they had an intact lineage that would be handed down from woman to woman, of support, of awareness, of knowledge, um, of sharing gifts. And I wanted to recreate that. And so that's why I created the new moon meetups in our area. I wanted to have that experience with other women. I wanted us to be able to sit in circle. I wanted us to be able to share wisdom and understand we're not alone. And so some of the things that are traditions of women gathering, and why I encourage you to find a circle in your own area, is that women would gather during the new moon. They would honor the rhythmicity and the cycles of rest and effort, learning and growing together. And they would reestablish connection with themselves, with each other, with nature, and this web of support, a rich web of support, which is what I hope to grow here in my region, is a rich web of sisterhood, of support, of upliftment. A rising tide lifts all boats. Being able to have us be true connected sisters who are standing side by side, who are honoring each other, who are holding each other up, celebrating each other's victories, honoring each other's challenges, and respecting with reverence the power that each of us have within us. We don't need to be fixed. We're whole ourselves and complete. Being able to ask for help when we want it, not just trying to do it on our own, but also not trying to tend and save each other, because we don't need to be saved. So it's a rich experience. I love, absolutely love the women that are going and that I'm meeting through these circles. I've met women who I had no idea existed, who are interested in some of the same things I'm interested in, who are fans of both logic and soul, who are highly intelligent and highly activated in their spirituality. And they each have this different way of being that just makes me have such appreciation for the different facets, the different ways that the divine feminine shows up in the world. And so I have a passion for this, if you can't tell already. And I encourage you to connect with a global sisterhood circle or a new moon circle in your area. If you don't find one that resonates with you, keep looking. You'll find your sisterhood. If you can't find it, create your own. I just created it on Meetup and put it out there, and had a response that was amazing to me. And I'm so grateful. Like, can't express the amount of gratitude I have for the richness I feel like I've been blessed with by being part of the sisterhood circles and part of meeting, sitting with women, with these women in particular. Gail Walker is my counterpart. My co-organizer for our meetup. She's amazing. She's opened her home to us. She is artistic. She has healing. She has gifts. She has so many gifts, and she's discovering those and exploring those. And being held, by each other in these circles is just something that I had always craved, I was always wanted, but I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought that I was somehow different. I couldn't have that. That was for other women. And yet here I am, and I do have that. And I am so incredibly blessed. And I want you to, if that's something you're craving, for you to know that it's out there for you. The other thing I want to share here is why circles are so important to me, and why this reconnection is so important to me. I discovered that I was disconnected from nature back when I was at my corporate job. I was a telecommuter, which means you work from home. But I also had 3 small children, and I was a single parent. My youngest was born a month after my divorce was final with their father, the kid's father. And so it was a pretty tough experience those first couple of years. And well, the whole thing was a rough experience, but especially those first couple of years. I had stripped everything out of my life to try to find, to take away everything except for what was absolutely essential. And I went way too far. And when I got the lease to sign to renew my lease for this little home that we had in the suburbs, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this for 16 more years, maybe 18 more years. I have, sucked the joy out of my life. And so I ended up, through a long sequence of events, selling everything that we owned except for memorabilia and antiques, putting that in storage. We moved into a tent. I had no plans. I had no idea what was going to happen. I just knew that we needed to get back. We needed to have some fun. We needed to be outside. We needed to get back to what was real. And being able to be there, to live at the tent. I telecommuted from the tent. So I had a laptop just like I'm talking to you right now. I had DSL and electricity run to this campsite. A friend let me just kind of use some of her land that was kind of off the road. It sounds a little crazy, and I'm not saying that, everybody should do this. This is just how it happened for me. You don't have to be so dramatic in what you do when you reclaim what's good for you, but just sharing this as an example of how it did happen for me. So I had DSL and electricity run to the power pole at the end of the road, and then we kind of like carved our camping spot way back in the back under the trees. And then I ran a really, 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 really long electricity cord, and I think it was DSL that I think was installed. Can't remember if I think it was DSL that was installed. And I was telecommuted to my corporate job from this tent. And I'll tell you, it was the best thing ever. Like, it brought me back to life. We were able to go to sleep when the sun went down, wake up when the sun came up. We slept out under the stars at night sometimes. And being able just to be back with what was real and what was with nature was my way of using that wisdom of connection, which I hadn't even found yet, to come back home to me. And many years later, being called by the moon and finding myself back here again, working with the lunar cycles has really given me that same sense of returning, that same sense of being held by something larger, a container that is predictable, that is can hold the largeness of me, and can also direct in gentle ways. My focus and attention has brought me back to myself, and I'm incredibly grateful for that experience. And that's one reason why I'm really passionate about sharing lunar cycles, because I know what it's done for me. I know what it's done for the women that I know, and I've had a pleasure of sitting with in circle, and a pleasure of serving as like a guide on the path in the lunar lab. And so I encourage you to check this out. This may not be your particular form of bringing magic back into your life, but find something that helps you reconnect. If the lunar cycles don't seem to do it, find another way to help you reconnect with yourself and with nature. And so I'm leaving you with recommended resources. I'll link these below. I think I touched on everybody in here except for Ezzie Spencer's Lunar Abundance. And she has beautiful graphics and downloadable printouts. Her book is called Lunar Abundance, and it's beautifully written as well. She's an attorney by trade who has ended up using the lunar cycles to really come back to regain a sense of health and balance in her life, and now she helps other women do the same. And so I highly recommend her book and her printouts and resources and the classes she offers. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm so glad that you joined me. I'm so honored if you made it to this point. Wow. And I'll also put a link in here to um, 3 quick ways to reconnect with the magic in life. And so that's just a little, let's see if I have one of these here. That's a little handout that I created. So if you're in my area, if we see each other in person, please ask me for one of these. I would be happy to give them to you. You know, those times when you get stressed, you get freaked out, you're in that fight, flight, or freeze mode where all of your blood's running to your extremities and you don't really have any blood up in your higher thinking frontal lobes. It's hard to think. It really is hard to think. So this is why I created this little handout, 3 quick ways to reconnect with the magic of life. And that's when life gets stressful. And it just has a reminder. So all you do is carry this around. When you get stressed, if you can't think, open this up, do what it says. It's reconnecting with your breathing, reconnecting with nature, and reconnecting with the human. And then there's a spot here to write down your own ways, special ways that help you reconnect with the magic of life. And then on the back is deeper ways to reduce stress. And so you can download a free copy of my book, Sabbatical from Yes, schedule a clarity session with me, which is about getting super clear on where you are. So if you're considering working with a coach, it'll help you get super clear on where you are now, where you're wanting to be. I can help offer you some resources, and it's kind of a little check of like, okay, I check to see if what I have to offer might be valuable to you and instrumental in where you're wanting to go. And I can offer opportunities for us to work together, or being able to refer you out to someone you could check out and kind of see my style and see if we resonate. Because looking for a coach is kind of like dating, you know, it's like you want to have a little chemistry there. You want to make sure that you click with the person. And if you don't, that's great, you know, move on to the next person. So you could do that there. You also could join our local meetup that'll give you notifications for Empower Studio events, new moon gatherings, full moon gatherings. One of our moon sisters is C. Kirk, and she offers Koya. She offers a lot of other things. Another moon sister, Marcia May, who offers transformational creative days where you paint and you do soul memories and you align your chakra system. We have a lot of really interesting, cool moon sisters, but those are a couple to kind of get you started. And so if you sign up for that, you'll get notified of those meetups. I so appreciate you being here. And if there's any way that I can support you, if you have any questions, I would be honored to connect with you, honored to answer them and help you kind of on your way to your journey, your own personal journey of self-discovery. I also do lunar labs, and so I may include something about lunar labs at this link. It's bit.ly/deeper ease. Oh, I hope that comes out. That's probably backwards, isn't it? Anyway, thank you. I can't wait to hear how you're using lunar cycles or how you're incorporating this into a personal practice. And I hope to see you in Circle one day. All right, take care.